Yo, what's up, guys? About a week ago, I got my first HR Cyclops kill, which is what we're looking at right here. After I killed him in normals and started attempting him in high roller, I just kept using the same, vendor white gear sets. Since my damage is so low, I don't really use spells throughout the attempt, but if you were to do this legitimately, actually wearing a gear set, you'd probably be looking at casting spells a little more than I do here. Having said that, this kill was done just shortly after the Staff Mastery perk was added to Wizard. And as I'm sure probably everybody is aware at this point, the perk is a little overtuned and is adding quite a bit of damage, so that may be, the reason why I was able to get this kill on Vendor Whites, just simply because, that perk is adding so much extra damage. It'll probably be tuned back at some point. The Vendor Whites equipped are granting 4 dexterity, which I think makes the fight much more comfortable. Sometimes when Cyclops is recovering, I can get 2 smacks of the magic staff in, and that's probably only because, I have the dexterity, increasing the attack speed. I think the last noteworthy aspect of the setup is that to help deal with the rockfall phases, we've equipped the Arcane Shield skill and the Reactive Shield perk. There's an RNG aspect to dodging the damage from the rockfall, so it's super important that we're actually able to take, X number of rockets and not die. When I was learning the fight in normals, I did toy with just manning up and casting Magic Missile, but that failed spectacularly, so I can't recommend it. With a cracked gear set, though, it could be a viable option. At this point, I'll start going over how to actually play the fight and my thought process as things are happening. So Cyclops is a circle right fight, meaning we're pretty much always strafing to the right as he's acting. If at any point you're in melee range of Cyclops and decide to start circling left, bad things will happen to you. Like most AI in Dark and Darker, the easiest way to approach Cyclops is to play around his recovery animation. The gist of it is that whenever Cyclops enters a recovery animation, that gives us an opening to take an action. Coming up here, Cyclops is going to slam the ground with his foot. If you're too close when this lands, it will one-shot you. A little further out from the one-shot area, it will slow you. If you get slowed, it's important to sheath your magic staff so you can be fast enough to avoid his attacks. Cyclops doesn't punish you for exiting melee distance, so if you do get slowed, simply sheath and move to the right, diagonally away from him. Coming up shortly here is Cyclops' charge attack. He charges at you and then swings 3 times. You avoid the damage by jumping the first 2 and crouching the last. Here we have a rockfall phase. There's 2 of these in low roller and 3 of these in high roller. This is a DPS check, as Cyclops will not stop this animation until you deal a certain threshold of damage to him. As you can see, he smashes the ground in front of him over and over, so the safest place to be is behind him. Every time he smashes the ground, some rocks will fall from the ceiling. To avoid the damage, you should jump and crouch about a quarter of a second after he smashes the ground. There's an RNG aspect to the rocks falling from the ceiling in that they drop somewhat staggered. So you'll need to make sure whatever setup you're using can take a few hits and also does enough damage to end the rock phase in a timely manner. After the rock phase, definitely patch yourself up as you'll need full health to deal with the next one. Coming up is another charge attack. When you're performing your 2 jumps, either don't jump crouch or end your crouch as you're landing. If you don't manage this, Cyclops can actually Hulk over you and lock you into your crouch position, causing you to get hit. Following Cyclops' next charge, we're going to see his paralysis attack. Similarly to the cockatrice on the ruins, if you get hit by this, you'll be rooted and unable to melee. The attack is a frontal cone, so all you have to do is walk forward and beside him. If you do get tagged, you should probably go invisible, otherwise it's very likely you'll die. Coming up are Cyclops' 3 standard attacks. Here's his hand swipe, his lunging slam, and his club swipe. All of these can be avoided by circling right and away. The hand swipe is a low attack, so it can be jumped. The club swipe and the hand swipe can combo into either of the other two attacks, whereas the forward slamming lunge will end the combo immediately. So here's another rockfall phase. With this wizard set up, I Arcane Shield, Ignite, and then go to town holding down mouse 1. Pay attention to the delay between his slam and the rocks falling, as that's when you need to time your jump crashes. If you get super comfortable in the fight, you can actually hold down M1 for the entirety of his charge phase. I found though that this was a good way to get hit and or stuck underneath him, so I stopped doing it. Okay, back to his standard attacks. Here is a hand swipe that combos into a lunging forward slam. Remember that the slam can't continue the combo. Another hand swipe into slam combo. Here is a hand swipe that does not combo. Coming up here, he has an attack that flings dirt toward you. If this attack lands, it will partially obscure your vision, but as long as you're moving to the right, it never will. Back to standard attacks, here comes the club swipe, comboed into a hand swipe. And there you have it. Realistically, I feel like the only difficult part of the fight is the RNG aspect of the rockfall, and so if you can sort that out for yourself, you should have a pretty easy time getting this kill. Alright, so here is the vendor gear. Noteworthy aspects are the magic staff to increase our overall damage, the cloth pants and the leather gloves for dexterity, and then lastly the leather cap to help mitigate some of the rockfall damage. For our skills, we've got Arcane Shield to help mitigate the rockfall damage. And then for perks, the important ones are Reactive Shield and Staff Mastery, with Arcane Mastery and Mana Surge being less important. If you are low gear like I was for this run, definitely lock in the Orc for a little extra damage on your box. Here is the spell wheel that was used, but I think you can pretty much just run whatever spells you want. As your gear level increases and you scale your spell damage, you'll want to use them more than I did in this run. And maybe the only spell you want to make sure you have is invisibility, just in case you get petrified or something goes wrong, you can just invis and reset the fight. Oh, and obviously, if you're super low gear, make sure you're going to use the magic staff with the staff mastery perk and ignite, because that's going to crank your damage in opposition of your low gear. Yep, so there you have it. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next time.